All right, so I finished Paatal Lok and season one, and I just gotta say, this is gonna be a hefty one to try to review. Hello there, namaste. So I'm gonna kind of try to smudge this into groups of categories, kind of, to try and get through it as best I can. First thing I want to talk about is the unpredictability yet fun I had while both frustration while watching it with my wife, because there are scenes there that made me incredibly angry, some scenes that me and her were laughing at, some scenes that are just like, what's wrong with this person? And we'll get into each individual one as I talk about each bunch, because I want to talk about like the chief officer and his family. I want to talk about the investigation. I want to talk about the four criminals. I want to talk about like the twist at the very end. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff here that I'm just going to try to compile into this mess of a review. So first things first, the four that are captured. We're introduced to like their stories through the fact that, well, primarily the flashbacks. There is a cold open at the beginning of each episode, which kind of hints that it's a flashback, only for another episode to prove that it's a flashback. But the four who are arrested are charged with basically being terrorists. And I was of the hope that at the very end of it all, it would not be the case. The journalist, who I liked at the beginning and then hated by the end of the first episode, would ruin his career leaning that route, which at the very end, that doesn't happen. It's kind of like disappointing in that aspect. It's like everything we find out goes nowhere, because this story is primarily about the corruption of the officers, the corruption of a political system, the corruption of like religious extremism, because in the end, it is religious extremism. The whole issue was everyone was backing this horse because he was a religious figure, and everything fell to pieces because of that. I mean, even within the four, there's that twist that one of them isn't who they seem, and it's kind of obvious. We get that inkling at the beginning in one of the cold opens with a flashback. We know exactly who that is who's putting on lipstick, and it is sad. It is actually very sad, because I feel for their story, that person, I mean, people who cross-dress transcends time. That has gone on for thousands upon thousands of years. I don't see it as that shocking, but it was just like the fact that at the very end, we're introduced to what that person's true motivations were. They found someone they cared for, but that person swung one way, and they wanted to be that person for that person, the person who encouraged them to be who they wanted to be. And it's like, imagine being that person. You have a friend who you care about. You want them to be themselves. You want them to be their best selves. You're encouraging them. Maybe you don't feel that way for them, but you're hurt that they're not being themselves. So you encourage it, only to find out that your encouragement led to this. And at the very end of it all, they care about you so much. It was like, oh, this is where I put everything I've made. It was all for you. And it's just like, oh, that hurt. That hurt. The elite killer among the group, the one who loves dogs, which I gotta say, my heart went out to him when they went down that storyline. It was like those who love dogs, those whose dogs love them, is like, yeah, that says a lot. That speaks volumes. He was awesome. The fact that, I find it weird. It seems to happen more in like rural villages. No matter where you are in the world, it seems like the more outskirts you are, the more small-minded, I guess it becomes, because there are a lot of instances in this show which just show the village as not broad-minded thinkers. Let's just put it that way. So there's a dispute over land, and this guy has not his sons, or his sons and his friends, whatever, do things to his brother's daughters. So the son, the sister's older brother, takes revenge by taking them all out with a hatchet. Takes them all out in a schoolyard with a hatchet. And it's just like, immediately when I saw that, I'm like, he's justified. I'm okay with that. Why did he just finish with them? Why didn't he go after the uncle too? Why didn't he go after the uncle too? It was disgusting to watch. And he's just like, I liked him. As soon as I saw that scene, the fact that he was friendly with all them pups, I was like, I like him. I like him as a character. I felt sorry for him. He had a drive. He had a calling, and it was just like, people take advantage of that. So he got taken in by an extremist organization because the youth, the ones who are scarred, are easy targets. There was another one who was slightly insane, who stalked a woman whose girlfriend, who was literally someone who tried to, a female politician who tried to sleep their way to the top. And those in the US know who I might be referring to. But yeah, a female politician who tried to sleep her way to the top, basically emulating that. She was being stalked by one of them and basically threw him in to be arrested with the 4 others. Because they didn't know each other. They all happened to be in the same place at the same time doing the same job, which most of them didn't know what they were doing. And he had a tragic history where he's of a lower caste, and I find the concept of caste disgusting. It just leaves a bad taste in my mouth that you think you could be superior than someone else. I mean, how? I'm probably going to get hateful comments if anyone gets to this point where it's just like, no, this. It's like, it don't matter. We're all human beings. We all bleed red. It don't matter. I care about as much for my dog. Well, I care more for my dog than I do for most people because I don't know most people. But when you grow to know someone, you grow to care for them. It's just the way it is. But he joined an organization which talked about the lower caste kind of getting equal rights and things like that. And he's encouraged to fight back. And what he does, he ends up scarring someone of a upper caste. And that kid tells the kid when he's running away that I am going to get my father to take advantage of your mother. And it's like, any adult, any mature brain would listen to a child making an accusation like that. Most adults would hear that and be like, that's just a child being a child, saying something truly monstrous because they're children. They don't understand the concept. But no, the adult apparently took it because this shows the intelligence, the small-mindedness of the adult, literally did what his son said his father would do. And not only that, the father brought like 20 other guys to do the same thing. And it was just like, how stupid, how small-minded, how barbaric does a community have to be to accept or continue through with the promise of a child? It was dumb. It was absolutely dumb. It's like, I got in an argument with my fiance. Well, not really an argument, because I was just enraged. I was just like, what? This makes no gosh dang sense. A kid said that he was going to tell his father to do this. Of course. You listen to the kids spout nonsense. And that, oh my gosh, it was just aggravating to see. There was several scenes like that. And it's just like, even the kid that grew up wanting to be something else, well, you find out that kid was taken advantage of as well. And it's just tragic to see. It would hurt to see that. It just ripped out my insides, and it's just like, this is tough. This is tough to get through. And the last one that was arrested, his backstory was tragic as well. During a religious extremism group, like, his family was Muslim, and they pulled out some chicken to eat. There was a Hindu woman sitting next to him who just assumed it was beef and threw up water and started, like, they pulled his older brother out of the train, and this happened when he was a kid, and stabbed him to death. So what did the father or uncle or whoever was raising him do? Tried to raise him as not a Muslim. And it's like, he had carried around with him a false circumcision in his pocket. He carried around with him because he had to pretend to be, not Muslim. Because it just shows, like, I know everyone's going to say, oh, there's no extremism in this. There's extremism everywhere. Anyone who tells themselves otherwise, you better look closely at what you're following. It's probably extremism if you say there's no extremism. But yeah, that wraps up all 4 of them. And I gotta say, their stories alone could have been an entire series. Just them alone is an entire series. Yeah, they all just fit in so well. And I loved that. I liked how that was. But they had the main lead officer and his dynamic. You find out that the lead officer is actually a good officer, but he's never been able to play politics the way his friend was. There's underling 13 years ago, a year after he started, was able to play politics, make Brown knows the right people to climb up the ranks, because if you get into position of management, it's all about politics. I know from experience, it's always politics. And he never did that. There is a side story with him, his wife, and his son. His son doesn't talk to him. His wife thinks of him as absolutely nothing because he's not a real man. She always says, oh, you're acting like your father did, when his father would beat him as a kid. And he's like, I am not my father. And it's very tragic to see what his father did to him and then have your wife compare you to that. It was just like, you have no right to speak of that. Has he ever raised a hand to you? We'll get to that. Has he ever raised a hand to his son? We'll get to that. And she's like this complete doormat for her brother. Her brother always introduces scams to her. He invests in them, brings them to her, and hoists them off to her at a higher price. So he sees it as a scam from the beginning. She can't see it because, oh, my brother loves me, I love my brother, I can't see a scam. And it's just like, listen to someone who's on the outside. They notice things far easier than those who are on the inside of something. But yeah, he calls it out. His son is failing in school and hanging out with the wrong sorts of people, and it gets bad. It gets to the point where his son brings a gun to school from the wrong sorts of people, which he steals from them. And this is where it gets to the fun part of it, because I'm watching it, and here the father keeps calling out his son for making problems, gets to the point where he hits his son because his son brought a gun to school and threatened other people there. His father went to the school, took the fall for it, and it's just like, if you can't see your father is trying to help you out here, then what's wrong? What's wrong with you? But of course, the wife took the son's side. She got mad at the husband for doing his fatherly duties of trying to talk some sense into the son. He was asking, where did you get the gun? He was asking, it was just like, what's wrong? He needs to put him down the straight and narrow path. And he ends up hitting his son, which felt justified to me because it's a father's duty to punish their child for doing something wrong. And bringing a firearm to school, acting like, well, it's wrong to say. I was gonna say like an American child. Acting like an American child is not something that should be said, oh, no, it's my poor son. Don't hurt my poor son. He did nothing. No, that was something wrong. That was something wrong. And of course, his son ends up getting beaten up by the people he took the gun from, because the father has now took the gun from his son and he can't return it because his father has it. So he ends up telling his father all the information, and his father grabs his son by the arm, starts dragging him out of the house. And me and my wife were kind of in agreement here. The wife started, not my wife, the wife in the show started going all crazy, you know, yelling a bunch of nonsense about how he's like his father, all this stuff, everything that was just wrong, absolutely wrong. And I literally said, you just need to, and then whap, he did it. He did it. And I I felt vindicated. I just got to quote Sean Connery.
I don't think it's that bad. I think that it depends entirely on the circumstances and if it merits it.
And that's true. Honestly, in this scene, that was absolutely true, because I am against that kind of thing. But here you had a great husband who's committed to you, who's tried putting you on the right path, who's tried doing the right thing of punishing the child who needs to be punished, yet you're not allowing him to do anything. But what's funny is, after that...
Well, if you have tried everything else, and women are pretty good at this, they can't leave it alone. They want to have the last word, and you give them the last word, but they're not happy with the last word. They want to say it again and get into a really provocative situation.
Everything turned out. She changed. She started to call out her brother on everything. She realized that her son, even the son, started to look at his father after clearing him of everything, because his father took him to his friends and beat up his friend, grabbed his friend, had his friend drag him all the way to the person that he took the gun from originally, because so the father took the gun from the son took the gun from the friend, and the friend took the gun from like a criminal group. And he went all the way back to the criminal group and then beat up the criminals' underlings and then handed them back the gun. It was just like a crazy chain that happened all in one go. And I was like, amazing. Absolutely amazing. But after that, the family dynamic was kind of complete. And I loved that. It just felt wholesome afterwards because, like Sean Connery stated,
then I think it's absolutely right.
I really hope I'm able to find that scene to just paste in there. But there's the story of like the journalist, the one who is supposed to be the contracted hit, the one who is supposed to be targeted. And he starts to, like, he's introduced as like the correct, the right type of journalist, the one who doesn't spread false news, right? The fake news, the one who waits for confirmation before he says, oh, this happened. Oh, this happened. That's what they introduced in the first episode. Oh, we're not going to run with it because we don't know. And then immediately after, he's all about being the first on the bandwagon. Oh, the cops told me this, we're gonna run with it. Oh, the cops told me this lie, we're gonna run with it. All because I kept hoping. It was like, okay, he started cheating on his wife, right? He started doing everything wrong. Everything. Running with false stories, cheating on his spouse, taking advantage of a female underling. And it's just like, I was waiting. I was hoping for his entire empire to crumble. Because he even sold out to someone that he knows is corrupt. He says in a piece of dialogue that these people, this city forgets its villains too quickly. Only to go to bat for the villains. Only to join forces with the villains. It's just like, I guess he realized he was on the losing side and decided to change course. I just didn't care for it. I really didn't care for it because it's just like, I wanted him to go down. I really wanted him to go down, and no, it ended with him at the top of the empire. I didn't like that. Yeah, but I was thinking there was more to the journalist's wife's story, because I was of the mind that they tried to have kids, and the child was, like, you know, miscarried, or was born and died young, that kind of thing, but that's never introduced. They never say anything about that, because she has such a fixation on a dog that's pregnant, and she gets happy. She found something that she can care for because she found out about her husband and his problems. She found out about that, so she needed something for herself because her husband was no longer a part of her life. So she took in a dog, and it's just that dog which saved her husband's life. That's the funny thing. It's like she took in a dog which she fell attached to, because the dog, I guess, reminded her of her, but the dog has babies and she kind of sees the babies as her own. She's gonna be a perfect dog mom. She's just gonna be a perfect dog mom, better than a crazy cat lady. There's the difference. But yeah, and even though she was a bit crazy, but yeah, she ended up saving his life because dogs are just so cute and adorable. They're just adorable. Like mine's asleep right there, literally just camped out. Clocked out, just. All right, the investigation. The investigation basically starts following one trail. We're introduced to one pathway at the beginning of the series. The detective who's given the role, I assumed he was given the role because the Delhi police, the higher ups, the main Delhi police, thought he was a nobody who wouldn't be able to do the job justice and would fail, so that way they'd get away with it. Because I had feelings that the Delhi police would be involved in it. But things keep slipping out of the investigation. Like, things keep being leaked to the press, and the press keeps running with it and exposing things, and they keep blaming the detective in charge. And I kept thinking it was the Delhi police that was leaking all this stuff. It's like, it's gotta be. It's not him. He's not leaking it. Or it was the lady who didn't do her job when she was patting down the female because she wasn't doing her job. It was obvious she didn't do her job because she kept leaking information. She was given pastries and she sold out the names of the people who were arrested or their arrest records or something. She was cutting vegetables at one point while on the phone dealing with stuff. And then another time when she was supposed to be checking the inmate, she was on the phone just saying, oh, take off this. Take off this. And instead of doing a pat down or looking at their body, the person just did this. And my wife, to that point, from that point onward, was like, oh, they have breasts. I was like, no, you never saw anything, because immediately, as soon as the shirt was off, this happened. This happened. It was just like this. Do I have a chest now? Do I have a chest now? No. Well, probably, but that might has to do with food. But yeah, information kept getting leaked, so he's kicked off the case, and then the CSI get a hold of the case again, and they just turn it into this terrorist racket. Like they're from Pakistan, they're in incels, they're just all this stuff. It was just like, this doesn't make any sense. And of course, the original lead detective who we followed throughout the story, and his sidekick, who's gonna end up getting promoted, who's going through like a interview process to get higher up, they realize something's off, because the language that, or the script that the guy wrote his name in, he doesn't read, so they figured something was off, as well as the investigation and how it went. So they started doing the investigation after the fact, because the lead detective was suspended, so he's doing the job off the clock, and his underling is doing it while he has free time during his interview process. And I gotta say, all that kind of really does culminate in the ending, with how information was leaked, with how people found out certain things, with why certain people were competing with one another, because they keep bringing up this figure who leads people from the shadows. The argument of Master G at the very beginning of the show comes into play as to why that argument happened. As to that situation. And I gotta say, this film was a roller coaster ride throughout. I was just hoping that the journalist would lose his empire after he sold out completely. When you get to the end, the way it's kind of spilled the beans, everything gets introduced, it is from the detective. The detective is telling the person who basically captures him everything. Like how he knows this, what he knows, how he figured it out, who else knows, and basically is telling him everything. And it's just like, well, the cat's out of the bag now. They wanted to get this done. It's just like, what? Why bother? I mean, he's in season 2, so of course he gets through that. But it was so well done, because I liked how he knew everything. We hadn't gotten there yet. Well, or maybe those who can read what the death certificate said knew. I didn't. I couldn't read that, so I had no clue till he told us. And at the very end, how the dog saved the journalist's life. I mean, which led to everything, which led to the argument with the actual contracted killer trying to get a hold of Master G. That whole thing was just so well done. I gotta say, I freaking loved it. But yeah, I was in full agreement when they told the story about the dog. I'm like, yeah. Every time they kept bringing it up. If dogs love you and you love dogs, you're a good person. If dogs don't like you and you don't like dogs, you're a bad person. I mean, that's a very easy way to tell. I gotta say, in all, I found this absolutely killer. Even though there were scenes and things in this series, like I mentioned, that drove me up the wall angry, the mystery behind it all, the way it gets there, and the fact that at the very end of everything, you find out that it's politics, it's religion, it's corruption, and it doesn't change. Nothing changed. As soon as you find out everything at the very end, nobody else finds it out. Why? Because it's politics, because it's religion, because it's corruption. They all go hand in hand. And it's just like, I gotta respect it. It was just like nuts. It was nuts. And even though I normally prefer things to end on a different note, you could tell by how it continued what it was going towards. The fact that things have always remained this way, and they will always remain this way. And that's a tragic, depressing thought, but it's quite realistic. Thank you all for watching. I'm definitely going to be checking out season 2 pretty soon. I don't know if I'm going to do episode for episode, because this is a bulky thing to edit. There's just too much in this series. Thank you all for watching. Talk to you next time. Toodles!